What is ontology? Let me give you a general introduction to the word and the concept. The word itself comes from two Greek words, namely onto, which means existence or being real, and logia, which means science or study. And the word ontology is used both in a philosophical context and a non-philosophical context. And let's start with the former. Ontology in a philosophical context. Well, it's basically the study of what exists, what is being real, what is real. And examples of philosophical ontological questions could be, what are the fundamental parts of the world and how are they related to each other? Are physical parts more real than immaterial concepts? For example, are physical objects such as shoes more real than the concept of walking? And in terms of what exists, what is the relationship between shoes and walking? And why is ontology important in philosophy? Well, philosophers use this concept of ontology to discuss questions, to build theories and models, and to consequently better understand the ontological status of the world. And over time there's been two major branches, ontological materialism and ontological idealism. Materialism, from a philosophical perspective, is the belief that material things such as particles, chemical processes and energy are more real than, for example, the human mind. So the overall belief within ontological materialism is that reality exists regardless of a human observer. And in ontological idealism, on the other hand, the belief is that immaterial phenomena such as the human mind and the consciousness are more real than the material things. And the belief here is that reality is constructed in the mind of the observer. Moving on, I told you this is just a general introduction to the concept. In a non-philosophical context, ontology is used in a different, more narrow meaning. Here, ontology is the description of what exists specifically within a determined field. For example, every part that exists within a specific information system. And this includes the relationship and hierarchy between these parts. And unlike the philosophers, these researchers are not primarily interested in discussing if these things are the true essence or core of the system, and nor are they discussing if the parts within the system are more real compared to the processes that take place within the system. Rather, they are focused on naming parts and processes and grouping similar ones together within categories. So, here are some more examples of the use of ontology outside philosophy. It's also used in social ontology. Here the idea is to describe society and the different parts and processes within society. And the purpose of social ontology then could be to simply understand and describe the underlying structures that affect individuals and groups. What is epistemology? The word itself comes from two Greek words, episteme, which means knowledge or understanding, and logia, which means science or study. So in a philosophical context, epistemology is the study of knowledge in general. And examples of philosophical epistemological questions are, what does knowledge mean, and how does a person get to know something, and what is the basis for true knowledge? What is knowledge? Some say it's justified true belief. It means that a person must be able to justify the claim, and the claim itself must be true, and the person must also actually believe in it. Let's assume that a person says, I know that people have walked on the moon. For this to be true knowledge, it must be possible to justify that claim. It must also be a fact, And finally, the person must also actually believe that people have walked on the moon. So how do you justify a belief? Well, it's done by using evidence. This evidence must be of good quality, and it should also be a logical and reasonable piece of evidence. Over time, there's been two major branches of philosophical epistemology, namely empiricism and rationalism. Empiricism, true knowledge, is primarily founded on input from our senses, the empirical world around us. And it's important to refer to experience and observations when beliefs and claims are justified and proven. So ideas or traditions, well, they might be important, but they are not the primary, most important sources for new knowledge. Rationalism, on the other hand, emphasizes reason rather than experience and observations as the primary basis for justifying beliefs and claims. Thus, the rational, hence rationalism, and logical human mind is the source for new knowledge, not the material world around us. So, according to rationalism, research results are verified primarily by reasoning. In a non-philosophical context, we've seen the use of the concept of epistemology. And this is because the task of producing new knowledge is a major part of the everyday work of most academics. So, epistemology has a significant impact on the scientific endeavors of most scholars, giving the importance of this concept for discussing the limits and possibilities of creating and reporting new knowledge. Further, scholars in certain academic departments and disciplines, such as, for example, curriculum and instruction, educational science, and pedagogy, have more or less an inherent interest in issues related to knowledge. Formal epistemology, what is that? Well, it is the study of questions such as what is knowledge, how may a belief be justified, how do we know something, and how do we know that something is true? However, the theories and concepts and arguments used here are used in a non-philosophical context. For example, in mathematical logic, statistics, linguistics, computing, and other academic fields. Genetic epistemology, well, it's used to understand the cognitive development among children and how children interact, understand, learn, and acquire new knowledge about the world. So, in short, the theory implies that symbolic systems, i.e. the individual's thoughts and knowledge, are based on sensory motor schemes, i.e. the individual's impressions and experiences in the world. And this concept of genetic epistemology comes from the Swiss psychologist Jean Piaget. Social epistemology is about the social context for creating new knowledge. Social epistemology is studied in academic fields such as sociology, psychology, and education. In focus are human and social aspects of knowledge production. For example, historical and cultural factors, the access to and the use of learning tools, and so on. So, having access to YouTube and the tutorials about philosophical concepts could be a perfect example of aspects that are in focus for those that are interested in social epistemology.